I'm going to take you through all the steps of tumbling Mexican crazy lace. I bought this from Kingsley North. It's 2 pounds. I'm going to sort through it and sort of pick out some and mix it with some other uh, gravel in there to soften the blow in the first stage of tumbling. But this stuff's fairly expensive. It's got good patterns right off the start, but you never know once you start tumbling these what you're going to get. Sometimes they look a lot better. Sometimes they get a little worse as they wear down with time. But it's a decent select of it. If you order this stuff from Kingsley North, it's $7.80 a pound, so it's pretty expensive rock here. This is 2 pounds of it, so it's $15.60 for it. So it's an expensive load to be tumbling here on it. But if you go to their store and buy it, there's a couple of different Mexican crazy laces that they sell, but this one's called the Mexican Crazy Lace Tumbling Rough. So when you order the Tumbling Rough, it gives you stones that are big enough that start out with a decent size, and then by the time you finally get them polished, there's enough left that it makes a decent polished rock. So I'm going to sort of pick through these, add them to the barrel. In the first stage, I'm going to just put it on this Harbor Freight tumbler. Spins pretty fast, but for the first stage, it actually speeds up breaking down the rock a good bit, and don't have to worry about too many pieces being broken off for it. And the tumbler barrel is a decent barrel. It's actually, for some of these cheaper barrels like the Harbor Freight and others, they're just round inside, whereas the National Geographic one has ridges in it that grabs the stones and tends to roll them around pretty good. So even though it's a cheap entry-level tumbler, it actually does pretty good at moving the stones around. The next stage, after I run the first stage, I'll put it in a tumbler that spins a little slower. I'll either be using one of my Harbor Freight tumblers or one of the Lortone tumblers that I have to not chip them up as much anymore after that, and I'll add some media with it and soften them up. So I'm going to just sort of pick through here, see what I want to add. These barrels don't have that big a size to them, so if you're using entry-level tumbler like this one, you really can't fill it too much. I'll try this big one out, see how well it holds up in there. I like the look of this, but it looks like this might break apart. I might chip that and use it in another batch another time. Some of these rocks are pretty flat. Try to use some of the more rounded ones. This one looks like it's got a kind of a cool pattern to it, so we'll see how this turns out. Kind of like the form of this one better. Not sure if this is gonna work apart or not. I think I'll try this one with it. I'm going to add some other media to it here. I've got some smaller stones and some pea gravel. Actually buy bags of this small stuff from Home Depot. You can get a 50-pound bag for like $6, and it works pretty good when you run a fast stage at the beginning, from taking too big of chunks off the rock and letting it smooth instead of just really breaking it apart. So I'm going to sprinkle some of this in there. These little pieces will get at some of the areas that are sunken in more on these rocks and help knock out little ridges that are dug in there more like that. That these bigger stones can't hit quite as easy, so it's good to pack some other stuff in there with it. Then I'm going to add some 60-90 grit to it, and then fill her with water. This is some grit that I got. It's a Chinese manufactured company. It's a little bit cheaper than people like Polyplastics, that sort of thing. I'm going to use this up. I've got plenty of grit from the Rock Shed and some other places that may be higher quality, but in the first stage, this cheaper grit that I've used, and I also did a review of it in another earlier video, it seems to work just as well. Now when it gets to the polishing stage, I'm definitely going to use a higher quality polish and final polish, like a 5th stage on it, to get the best shine out of these. But with this stuff, I'm not going to hold back on the mount. With this, I'm probably looking at about 3 good scoops of this to start with. I'm going to add some water to it. Just going to fill her up to about 2/3 of the way, just to where I can start seeing it cover the bottom of some of these rocks. Don't want to put too much water to begin with, or they really won't tumble around very well, but that'll be enough to get her started on the first stage here. Just going to cap it up and get her rolling here. To get this batch of Crazy Lace started, I'm only going to run it for 5 days. So with this tumbler, you can set it for the amount of days you want. Always run it on the slowest speed, even though it's the first run. This is a pretty fast spinning tumbler, so just set it on speed 1, set her for 5 days, and then I'll come back and check on it. As fast as this runs, I like to check it after 5 days instead of waiting 7 or so. Once I get to the next stage here, which you'll probably running it an additional 5 days until I get it pretty smooth, and then possibly another one after that of the first stage here, just re-adding grit to it and rinsing them out. Then we'll move on to the second stage, and that'll be the next video that comes along after that, and I'll just show you the progress of each as they move along. Just check back for the next video. Thanks.